a bike into a shared bike.
Yeah.
And that really started the whole industry.
Yeah.
I don't think they receive enough credit.
No.
But that is really the basic of what turns this industry really what it is, because they made sharing.
It was an amazing innovation, right? Before there were already shared bike schemes, but which obviously were relying on stations, which was extremely inflexible. It was taking forever to register. Everything was really complicated. And suddenly,
very simple usage.
It was very cheap. People could really
very fast
unlock bikes like in 30 seconds.
It was actually revolutionary the way it was executed in terms of user experience, because it was so simple to use that it could be implemented, and the normal person can use it. You don't have to be like an IT person to use.
And I went. Like, I remember I was on the street with my then girlfriend, and I stopped everything and I went on to touch the bird scooter, was looking it up and down, and I was like, I like this thing. Later on, Dot launched with their hardware as well from Quickwheel, which I thought was quite good, and I started using them frequently.
It was January, a weekend, Sunday, really dark outside, and Benny and I we were in a meeting room, in a stand-up meeting room, and thinking about, okay, what should we do?
Well,
you can go first now, Alexander.
I hear you will say that. Well, in the end, it's something that I always try to simplify, even when I was at Toyota, right? It's the classic move that I do all the time. Is this. So increase revenue, reduce costs. So this is something that people try to do.
That's a difficult one. I mean, the business is so different.
The car business, and even, there's so many aspects of it, right? How did you even begin with it? I have no clue. Please explain. Bird scooters all around in the city in Santa Monica from nowhere. They were really early on.
Currently, operators, if they're not doing that themselves, then they have that data. It's GPS based.
Exactly.
Operators are already doing that, and they're using kind of predictive, AI models to help.
I remember. So when Stefan put us in contact, the first time we met, it was at a coast station.
Yeah.
And one thing that was very striking after we talked is that you asked me how many scooters I was going to launch in the near future. And I was thinking about a few hundreds. Yeah. And then you said, no, you need to have like a few thousands, and I was just starting out. I was like, oh, that's a few thousands,
Absolutely.
And for the story, this e-scooter that we launched about 3 years ago is still being operated.
We just need to work together. I think that is a fact.
Yeah, well, obviously I completely agree. And I think, look, I followed my passion. My passion and my expertise is actually convening stakeholders, bringing people together, connecting public and private sector leaders.
It came from the United States, right? As you mentioned, Birds was one of the first.
We were at an event and he came with a fancy device, a mobility device, a two-wheel device, and it said Freel. And I don't know if you remember, then it was just a sticker.
Black text on white.
Yeah. And it was just a sticker on a e-12 scooter, right? So I was so fascinated by the form factor, and this is the first time I'm seeing a e-scooter in flesh, right? And I asked him about it, and he let me try it. And
talked about Commotion LA, but there's no way we can have a podcast about mobility without discussing the partnership that is needed between the different mobility modes. You need to have public transport. You need to have trams. You need to have buses. You need to have even cars. You need to have bike share. You need to allow people to safely walk if they want to walk to the store. You need to allow scooter sharing. So there needs to be a balance between the different mobility options. But how do we find the balance?
At the time, indeed, when we launched in Brussels and in Paris, in Lyon, we made a massive difference because we are the only one, basically, which had an e-scooter which was comfortable to ride, safe to use with the mechanical brake, the big wheels, and also was much more durable.
Well, actually, I was very surprised. I was listening you say kind of on the start of the industry. I was thinking we're in the mature phase, but maybe we can discuss that in a bit.
We are on the early
anyways,
days,
nice
so...
to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so. The name of the podcast as well.
Miles was growing. Moving in Spain was growing a lot. It was back then our biggest customer. Emmy was growing. Stella was growing. So all our clients were growing.
So we said, okay, we really want to make a sustainable offering of shared mobility, not only by offering electric vehicles, but also making sure that the whole footprint of the offering is truly green.
We were thinking about, okay, what do we really want?
Right. There is a lot of money coming in. Nobody, I think, knew what they were doing, but basically just launching different markets. It's these classic KPIs. Yeah, we have from 0 scooters and 0 markets to suddenly, 3,000 scooters, 10,000 scooters, 50 markets or whatever. So that is attractive for investors.
The popularity of the automobile. So if we kind of move through history, how people moved within cities and across cities was by rail over 100 to 75 to 100 years ago.
Yeah, that was really crazy.
On the cobblestones.
Yeah.
it was way better.
Which is very brutal in Brussels.
Yeah.
And now you know what we say is like if we want to test a new e-scooter, we always go to Brussels because the cobblestones are the most horrific one across Europe. I mean, Rome is pretty good also for that, but Brussels is definitely at the peak. So if you pass Brussels, you are good.
I mean, Brussels has a lot of difficulties, I would say, because sometimes a certain percentage might end up in the water or on the highway. I remember these things happened for the early days.
It was early days, and it was absolutely electric. I mean, it was so fascinating.
I'm not sure what happened to Scoot's network, actually. That is more in the United States, right? Do you guys know something about that?
I mean, they were in Barcelona as well, but yeah, they had this moped or something like that. I don't know what happened. Yeah, because they announced the hardware even in 2020, so while the crisis was ahead, but yeah, nothing is happening. So I think is again they kind of consolidate what you have. Don't expand, with different hardwares because that needs R&D and needs testing and needs to order different parts. I mean, spare parts, also to fix them. Need to train the people. Need potentially, different logistics as well behind it. And I know that also from Dot. The scooter versus the bike is completely different. So I suppose, and honestly, for me, it will make sense. This will probably be the reason why, although they do now launch the e-bikes. So I'm not so sure, right? Because they have the Oka e-bikes in Rome and other places now.
Days, not weeks. We got daily requests and incoming mails from people who would like to start kick scooter businesses. Like Lawrence and Julian were in our office in Dortmund. Hive, the Daimler company, they were in the office. Dot, they were in the office in Dortmund. So
for sharing,
for shared, or for sharing, for
but
shared
at that time,
Micromobility.
there was no one
so
doing
at that
it.
time, at that time, so we found basically a Singaporean guy, which is called Daniel, which had already worked for a few years in the e-scooter industry.
Oh, wow.
And so together with him, I went in August, actually 2018, in China. And we went to screen all the suppliers we could find that were producing e-scooters in China.
Yep.
And we found one supplier which had basically designed an e-scooter specifically for the shared mobility market.
And that's how I got into mobility.
I really like your reaction.
No, it really caught me off guard.
So it's not operating in Brussels, but it's operating in Poland because just the cost of operating it is more expensive than the newer generation, but it's still being operated. And we just decided after analyzing the durability of the product that actually we would continue to operate it for a fourth year, which is pretty amazing. We would never have thought about it. Like 3 years ago, the discussion was, okay, would it last 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months? That was the type of discussion.
But you guys actually set the standards of the quality of the scooters, basically, because I remember when I was working in Brussels, when I saw a Dot scooter and I tried it, I mean, the experience on the cobblestones,
Yeah.
it was way better.
Which is very brutal in Brussels.
Yeah. And
now, you know what we say is like, if we want to test a new e-scooter, we always go to Brussels
Brussels.
because the cobblestones are the most horrific one across Europe. I mean, Rome is pretty good also for that, but Brussels is definitely at the peak. So if you pass Brussels, you are good.
I mean, Brussels has a lot of difficulties, I would say, because sometimes a certain percentage might end up in the water or on the highway. I remember these things happened, but you guys really. And there was so much money going in, and Bird and Lime, they were launching all over the world. And I know you were writing analysis of the market about the hardware. Lime had a very specific scooters in terms of hardware, even back then, I think.
Yeah. Ours was better, but
I mean,
with all due respect, Lime.
But I think Lime scooter, the original one, is still being used in Prague.
Bikes done. We had to do. We're now deploying thousands of e-bikes, so they're going to be just as recognized as the mopeds. I mean, the cars.
We had no idea where this would be going. The first 9 months, we didn't even visited these guys, so it was a completely remote relationship. Like everything, we had no idea where they're at and whatever, and. Once we had a call with someone from the US, they were in a truck, and did the first sales call in a truck. And, the trust I had back then from people doing the first call from a truck, I was like, oh, holy, what's that, and the founder from Newt, he first called us, and he had like a big sign in the background, Newt, and it was light and glowing and so on. And I was like, oh, you have a really nice office. And then he was turning the camera and was like, man, I'm in my garage. I'm just making this. I just want people to know that it's a big company, but to be honest, I don't have money. I'm in my garage. So it was so funny. And but still I was like, man, this is so cool. Every big thing started in a garage.
Exactly.
So,
true. No, it's true.
Yeah, so
it's like either you are doing a very good job at managing a 3PL, third-party logistics company.
We share a location, and so the MQTT feed has information like timestamp, GPS location, but also the kind of category, the predefined categories that we've established. So am I on a street? Am I on a bike lane? Am I on a sidewalk? Am I in a parking garage? And so that feed, our operator customers sit on that and ingest it and can surface real-time notifications to their users via the app, right? We also have speakers on board the Path Pilot, which shares sound files that our customers can choose, can design themselves, whether it's voice or a sound.
Entrepreneur, this new podcast, shared micromobility is a totally new industry, and I think if there's someone like you who can tell the story from the inside and really talk and interview all the people that today are building this new shared micromobility world, I think, maybe it will be a piece of history in a few years. So thank you, Constantin, for that.
Well, the goal is to actually tell how it all started, because, most of these big companies started little. And most of them all know each other because we all started with Segway ES4.
not Dot.
Exactly. That's why Dot is different from others.
Yes.
And that is what I want to talk about.
I think I love the process of learning new things. It doesn't mean that it'll stick in my brain for a very long time and I will remember everything. Mm-hmm. But life is just one shot, so you have to use all the opportunities to learn new things.
Exactly.
Right? So that's how I got into aerospace. And then after getting into aerospace, I was fortunate enough to have really good, colleagues there, where I learned a bit more of coding, a bit more of electronics, a bit more about what you can achieve in life. Right.
Yep.
And so that's my journey there.
It's amazing because
very simple.
Yeah,
very basic.
It's very simple when you explain it, but I think back in 2018 when you were executing, it was probably a bit difficult.